Don't underestimate
The power
of a single
Conversation.
it could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
conversations that matter.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I bring my last.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of INCRadio Chatline, Conversations That Matter. So, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about courtship or dating, as most people call it nowadays. And we talked about the friend zone, that it's actually a very important thing to be friends with people so that you learn different skills that contribute to a healthy relationship. We talked about rejection. How do you handle rejection? What if someone tells you no? It's okay. We're going to move on. It doesn't matter. One day someone will meet you and they will be the one. And then the last one that we talked about last week was intentions. How important are intentions in a relationship? And, a lot of the discussion was around like being very honest with each other. And today we're hitting the last leg of our series of courtship and marriage, which is marriage. And we have a few couples here today joining us who will talk about their experience and offer some great advice. So our hope is that everyone who is tuning in today will take away something that will work for them today. So we want to introduce our lovely couples. Well, a couple and a half. We'll get to that. But I do want to introduce the first couple. We have Edwell and Gail. Thank you for coming. Can you please introduce yourself, how long you've been married, and how did you two meet?
My name is Gail,
My name is Edwell.
and we've been married for 28 years. So,
Going on 29 this year in November,
yes.
if our math serves us correctly. And where we met? Well, we met at a church function. We were introduced by a young lady named Bernadette, who, as fate would have it, would one day become one of our bridesmaids, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. She is a childhood friend of mine. So, and she knew Edwell before I did, because when Edwell came here in our area, I wasn't here. I was actually away at college. And when I came for a break, that's how I met him. We were introduced by a mutual friend.
Yes. And unlike anything in the movies, sparks didn't fly off or anything like that. It wasn't like love at first sight. Not at all. It was very casual, right?
Yes, just hi.
Yeah, I think the whole
Nice.
introduction thing lasted less than 5 seconds,
Yes.
if even that.
Yes.
So that's it.
Those 5 seconds turned into 29 years. Oh, actually, the other question too, if I may, how many kids do you both have?
We have 2 boys.
Are they both, how old are they?
Okay, we have to think about this one. 26 and 22.
No.
Oh, okay, see?
Sorry for more math.
Okay. Our older one, he's 27.
Going to be 27.
No, he is.
He is. Okay.
27.
See, this is going to lead to an argument. Watch later on.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
He is 27, and our younger one is 23.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves, and thank you for being here. I do want to move on to our other half couple. And I'll let the couple or the one person of the couple explain. But Rod, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Rod Kahayak, and my wife's name is Chriselle Kahayak. Unfortunately, she's feeling ill, coughing a lot, and couldn't join me at this time with everyone. We've been married going on 26 years. Yes, this year in October. And we met at church after. Well, let me take that back. I saw her at church she was invited by her cousin to attend to attend church. But then when I actually met her to get introduced and everything was at a Bible study. And that's where we met. And now 29 years later, or 20, I heard Ed, Will, and Gail talk about 29 years. But so now we have one daughter. She is 21, Journey. And this 26 years has been a journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. And again, I am so glad to have both of you here today, even though there's only a half couple, but it's okay. I realized I did not introduce myself. My name is Lisa Mitchell. I am going to be the host for today. I'm going to hop in and join also with these questions about um, the couples. I've also been married too for like a year and a half. It actually will only be 2 years this November. So we're a very young couple. Shout out to my husband, Brian, wherever you are. We don't have any kids yet, but we're in no rush. We're definitely getting settled and building for our future family one day. But we're gonna get right into it. One of the biggest things for today is just answering a few questions, especially about marriage. We all know that marriage is a lifelong commitment, and if you choose to take that step, there's a lot of questions that you might have. Sometimes you don't realize you have that question until you're in it. So we're going to go through a few of these areas. Today, the first one, we're going to talk about livelihood, or for some people, it's your career, how you earn your own income, right? To be financially stable. Some people actually see it, when you secure your career, your education, people nowadays see it as a requirement before marriage, right? But one of the biggest things that came up was, how do you support your husband or your wife in their career or education without abandoning your own goals, like your own career and education goals? How do we balance that? Got some thinking caps going on.
That's very, very challenging indeed. But a lot of it is communication, really. A lot of it, you have to sit down with your spouse and say, are you happy with where you are currently? If you're not happy, then what changes do we need to make? And so a lot of it is planning. And so if someone is unhappy at their like with Gail, she was having difficulty. She was teaching, and it was very challenging for her because she was having with the kids, right?
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to have that discussion to say, okay, if you're not happy, what is it that's going to make you happy? Is it a career change? And if so, if it's a career change, and what do we need to do with our current finances to make that happen? So there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of planning to make that. If there's changes necessary, there's a lot of planning involved. So I think that's hugely important. And again, she has to also kind of say, well, are you happy too, right? Well, I don't know. Well, what is it going to be? I mean, it was kind of a back and forth thing. So I would say communication and planning, definitely. But we, like I mentioned to her, we should not spend another day doing something we hate to do, because it's just, life is way too short for that.
Yeah, and also on top of that, with the communication and planning, so I recently I went back to school, and the way Chriselle was supporting me with that was all, the communication, we planned, we talked about it, was taking up some of the, like, helping me out with like some of the household chores, or, some of the stuff that like I would be responsible for. I had to do stuff online for school. And then so she would, take care of some of the stuff that some of the responsibilities that I had around the house, with Journey or with our little fur puppies and stuff. So I think, yeah, that goes in line with what you were talking about as well. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of good like nuggets of information in there, right? Like the biggest one off the bat was communication, right? You have to talk to each other and really kind of cement those plans and kind of figure out, okay, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? How are we going to make this work? How are we going to make it 100? And get it all together and just really show that one again that both of you are happy with what you're doing, not just one person, right? It's about you together working that out. So thanks for your sharing your experience and your advice on livelihood, right? Our education, our career, it's very important. I think one again, I'm going to just kind of highlight that it's just one of the things that a lot of people consider before marriage is just securing that, because it does lead to financial stability, right? A lot of people think about work experience, education, because that does help with building, your finances and you managing your finances, right? Like if you're going to provide for a household or contribute to a household, there's a lot of things that go into that. And if you don't have the ability to pay for those things, right? Pay for a child, pay for a home to house your family, that's very important. And it kind of leads into the next part, right? Family planning. Both of you couples have kids, right? I don't have kids yet, but I've raised kids as part of my career. And I understand that, the difference between me taking care of someone's child and being able to return them at the end of the day. That's not what you do when you're a parent, right? Your child is with you 24/7 and you're responsible for them 24/7. So obviously, the thought of having a child is very exciting, but it can also be very daunting and like everything in between. So, like, what is one piece of advice you wish you knew before you had children or had a child?
That I can't
And of
return them.
course, yeah, sorry. Rod was so ready to respond, but I do want to encourage everyone who's tuning in, drop some of your comments down below in the live chat. Just let us know what you're thinking. Just contribute. If you also have advice on any of these things, go ahead. All right, sorry, Rod, for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, I was just cracking a joke. I was just saying that I can't return them. So no, but like the one piece of advice I wish we knew was, after we got married, we wanted, like most couples, I would assume, would want to travel and then do things before having children. So the one thing I wish we were given advice to was, to go ahead and, start having a child right away, because, you just never know what happened in the future. So we have our daughter, Journey. She's 21 now, but before that, we did have a daughter before her, but she passed. Yeah, she passed. It was it was a stillbirth. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I wish that somebody advised us to go ahead and just, start having a child. Don't wait, because we waited, and it was hard for us to have a child. And when we finally did, we lost her. And then that's why we part of Journey's name is, it was a difficult journey. And but there we are on our journey with Journey, and it's bright. We everything's looking good, and we have each other, and that's all I'm trying. That's the one piece of advice I wish somebody told us was, don't wait, just go ahead, plan for that family, plan for those kids, because you just never know.
That's good.
I'm trying not to cry.
I know.
Me too. I'm
It's
trying
such
not to
a,
cry.
I'm sure everyone has the same sentiment as me. That's like that's a very, it hits you heavy in the heart because it makes you think, right? Like, especially for those who may have gone through that experience. You never know what the journey lies ahead, right? So that's again, I just want to say, like, thank you so much for sharing that. That's something that, I know, I again, working in the field with children, it's something that does happen, but um it's a very heavy topic that not a lot of people can share openly. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I know Gail was gonna say something. I'm just interrupt,
Oh no,
but go ahead. Yeah.
that was, you're right. I mean, it's like a bittersweet type of, it's a bittersweet story, and, um, you know, unlike, Rod and Chriselle, we kind of had a kid right away.
Had to. I was already 30. I was already 30 when I got married. So, yeah, so much for family planning. He said, no, we got to do it. Time is running out for me. So, yeah. No, but definitely, there's really no perfect time. And a lot of people say, before you get kids, make sure you travel, make sure you have a house, make sure you've got savings. But I think if you wait until the perfect time, it's very rare that perfect time really happens.
Never gonna come.
Yeah. So if you feel good, if you're 50% to your goal, I would say just, go for it, because time is, it's something we don't, we don't really have control over. We don't know how long what we got. So yeah, I mean, definitely start a family right away, because, it's having a family, a wife, and then children. It's really the best thing in the world. Sometimes I joke with my friends, hey, would you be, if you were young again, if you were single again, would you take it in a heartbeat, right? I would say, you know what? No, I wouldn't, because, being single, it was fun, but once you're married, and once you have children, it's a different world, and it's a world that, no, it's great. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a family, there's that bliss. You just can't, it's hard to explain, but you have that bliss, and you have that sense of completeness,
Yeah, it's true.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing that I would, give advice to is, just cherish every moment of your children when they're young, because they're past the baby stage and they're on to the toddler stage. It goes by so fast, because I look at our children and they're adults, and I keep wondering, my goodness, where did the time go? And so I had, in hindsight now, if I were to do it over again and raise my boys again, I would be a little bit more patient. I would be a little bit more understanding. I'd have, not, I wouldn't be so short with them, I, because once one day goes, it's never going to come back. So, that's one thing I would throw out there is, just really cherish the children you have and savor every moment when you're bringing them up, because
Right.
it never comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody told me one time is like, I said, yeah, time goes by so fast. Then he goes, yeah, if you're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's so true. Cherish every moment, because if you're not paying attention,
Yeah.
that's gone. You know what I mean?
It's very easy to not pay attention because we get so caught up in
Mhm.
everyday life and taking care of this, taking care of that, going here and going there. So it's it's hard to keep focus with your family, and just making sure that there's proper time spent with the family, with the children, and not putting them on the wayside because you're so busy with school, with with work, you know. So that would be my advice to
Yeah.
anyone thinking
Yes,
about it.
definitely, Lisa. Believe me, they go from, Dad, can you buy me this baseball glove, to, you got the car. You know, it goes by quick.
Or can I get gas money?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Or
There you go.
like, do you want to come with me to the store? No.
Yeah.
No,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to stay home.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
But yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
absolutely.
do see that dynamic because my older brother does have a now teenager, and just seeing how much because I did help raise him when he was a baby. So now that he's a teenager, and I just see how much he changed in his communication with his parents, I'm just I don't know. It's just I know I've dealt with like infants and toddlers, but teenagers are a whole different ballgame, and I think that's where like my reservations are in terms of like raising children is like when it gets to teenagers, I was like, I don't know how to handle any of not any of my experience. So it would feel a lot like unknown territory. So that's like where my feelings are, hearing the advice that, you all are sharing. But it
No,
is,
definitely do not feel alone,
yeah.
Lisa. Believe me, because when
Hmm.
and I'm sure Rod can and Rochelle can attest to this. When my boys turned to their teens, yeah, I mean, there's no manual out there to follow. You know, you just do the best you can to raise them. You know.
Yeah, and I think it's important that your children feel like they can confide in you without being, disciplined for something they may have done wrong, or, thinking certain ways. I mean, you have to make them feel comfortable enough to open up to you and, see you as a friend, but know that you're not a friend. You are that you are their parents, but they're, and you're not like their peers, and that they view you as someone that they can turn to more so than their friends. So, and I think, and that's really important, especially when they're in their adolescent years, when they're in their teenage years, the upper teens, where they're so vulnerable to, you know, influences that may not be so good for their life. So, and that's also a way of keeping tabs of who they hang out with and who their friends are, and so I mean, I know that Ed was always telling the boys when they were growing up, choose your friends wisely, and you tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So, and I think that has rung true with them, because
Very true.
they are very particular about who they choose as friends, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, and I heard from somebody before, and this it had nothing to do with well, it does end up having to do with who you hang out with. Somebody asked a rich person in one of these seminars, and he goes, if I had, how do I teach my kids about finances, right, so that he could become rich one day? And his advice was, he says, have your kids choose the right people, the right friends. That's the quickest. And no, this came from the rich guy's advice. He goes, because if you want your kids to grow up a certain way, those groups talk a certain language. If your kid hangs out with college students, one day he's going to be a college student. If you're rich, hangs out with rich people's kids, they just talk about, their conversations are different. And so the same thing with, and that's what we try to instill in the boys. Hey, you guys, that you know eventually people you hang out with, you're going to end up being like them. So that's something we talk, and we are very, very strict with who they hang out with. And Gail asks them, hey, where are you guys, and who are you with, all the time. And I think that's the difficult conversation. It's a very difficult conversation to have with children, because a lot of kids, who grew up, especially in the United States, where you've got all this abundant everything, you have access to a lot.
Independent.
Yeah, the independence that kids have here, and it's hard for them it's hard to kind of rein them in, if you will, because they live in a society where you know, it's freedom. And so,
They can have freedom.
yeah, but within these bounds, there's a lot of freedom within the square, right?
Yeah.
You can bounce around, but make sure you're within the square, that you don't break the law, you don't, do anything foolish. So that's the challenge, I think, for most parents is again, it all boils down to me, is communication. Good, honest communication.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. There's it kind of segues into our next part actually too. You brought up a lot about, you know, how your children should choose the people that they spend time with, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be their friends. It could just be people that, they'll be able to pull different skills from, learn like new things, right? Be able to understand how a certain thing works or a certain situation works. So it goes to like the values and beliefs, right? Obviously, when you instill that in your children, it has to start with the couple first, right? The husband and wife have to be the ones to set the expectations and standards in the household. And as we all agree, it helps us navigate life, right? Our values and beliefs help us navigate life. But what if there's ever a point where, both of you, maybe your values and belief misalign, right? How do you get it back on track? How do you both get back on track in terms of like your values and beliefs? Say you want to implement it a certain way, and then it's like, okay, well, that's not the way I viewed that. How do you guys go about making sure that you both are on the same page?
I saw
Some
Rod's
tough
lips
ones, I
move. I
know.
think he's
These
about
are
to say
some
something.
serious. Yeah,
I'm
these are
just
some
kidding.
really good questions.
That is a good question. I think, you know, if our beliefs misalign, we always try to talk it out. Like what Edward was saying, it all boils down to communication. So, like, sometimes we try to play good cop, bad cop, so to speak, when we're talking to our daughter. One will be the disciplinarian and one will be the friend, and so. But sometimes when it misaligns, like we have to step back. We have to be like, okay, so what's really going on here? What are we talking about? What do we want? And that for us, it's really communication. We have to talk it out. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too that I'm hearing is when you talk it out, like obviously it's more of a common ground kind of thing, right? You're trying to find common ground. You're not trying to argue. You're trying to pick your battles here, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things is like sometimes when you don't see eye to eye, it could easily turn to an argument. How do you, I think the caveat to that is like, how do you avoid arguing with each other if you're not on the same page?
I don't think you can avoid arguing. It's going to happen if you disagree on something. Just because of our individuality. Edwin and I are very different.
We are, believe me, we are.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I learned, because when we got married, I was already 30, and we're 7 years apart. So I was 30, and I've lived a lot of my years alone, independently. So it was difficult for me to all of a sudden realize that, hey, there's somebody else's choices are also in the mix now. So I've learned through our marriage to compromise. It's not always going to be me. And she also knows it's not always going to be her. And sometimes, a lot of the times when our values don't align, there's going to be there's a compromise somewhere. We just have to find it. And like what Rod said, it's communication. And so it's like this, and then finally, okay, we'll settle here. It's not always 0 to 100. It's maybe 70-30 or 60-40. But there's a solution to be found somewhere that'll make both couples happy. Yeah, and like what Rod said, it's communication. It may take a while, and that's just it. It may take a while.
Especially if you're arguing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, you're both angry, right? And you know, emotions are high, and sometimes it's good to just kind of step away.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of step away and let it, you know, just let things settle. And then, you know, when you come back together, you're actually a little bit, you know, the calm. That time away also gives you a chance to really think about your position, think about their position, and then when you do come back together, it's easier. You know, that, I mean, so if it does become into a fight, argument,
These things happen.
Yeah.
And you know, Rod made a really good point earlier about stepping back, because sometimes that's what you have to do. You know, when you're in the middle of something, it's like, yeah, you know, if I may use a term, like a boxing match, right? But you know, like in a real boxing match, the ones who can see what's happening are the coaches, because the fighters are too, you know, too into each other, too involved. Yeah.
Close.
Yeah, that tunnel vision, like what Rod's doing right now. But the ones who can see what's going on is the coaches. So when the fighter goes back to his ring, the coaches says, "Hey, this is what you're doing." And so I think what Rod said about stepping back, that's a golden nugget that a lot of us can take back, because you do sometimes have to step away and look at the bigger picture. That's the key. Look at the bigger picture. And see where the arguments are, you know, the points that each other is trying to make.
Right. And I always ask myself, you know, like, what, or, you know, the W questions, why, what, you know, what is she thinking? You know, why is she thinking like this? And I try to like empathize in a sense, like, if that makes any sense, you know, I like, you know, why are we arguing, or why do we have this disagreement? And I try to think, you know, I try to like analyze it in a sense, like that helps me to stay more calm. It's like, let me put myself in her shoes, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Empathy is huge. Yeah, I think when, especially when you're heated, right? You're thinking more of like, I'm right, they're wrong, right? It's a lot of like the blame game, and then not wanting to take responsibility. And the important thing about communication is making sure that you both find a way back to that common ground, right? And you go, okay, now we're both here, instead of someone's on that side of the path or the other person's on that side of the path or ahead, right? Like you don't want to feel like someone's getting dragged along or someone's getting left behind. So that's what I'm taking from it, because I know for me and my husband, even though we've only been married like a year and a half, that's been one of the biggest things too, is taking a step back. We have this term, like whenever we feel like we're not on the same page, we have this term called the cage. And the reason why we say that is because we actually have a chinchilla, and I remember we were trying to set up the cage for it, and we didn't really have visuals. We were just verbally telling each other what we were planning for it. And he had a whole different, like when we finally sat down and drew it out together, we both had a totally different image of how we wanted to set up the cage. So like that's one of that for us was like a huge like a turning point in our communication. We're like, okay, we realize that we both want to accomplish something. We both are trying to go towards the goal. We have to really be, you know, just implement different strategies so we know what we're talking about when we're sharing ideas with each other and things like that. So that was like, that has really changed how we tackle anything, any kind of misunderstanding. So it's lovely to hear that there's these different strategies out there, right? There's never, we understand that there's no one way that everyone can use. It's just you have to figure it out together. So it's lovely to hear that both of you have given different strategies, and that, hey, you'll figure it out. That's like the biggest thing. It's like, as long as you both are trying to figure it out, have that patience, have that willing to understand. And yes, it's not going to be resolved in an instant sometimes. So that's, and I think for my generation too, I'm a millennial, and we really grew up with the idea of instant gratification, right? That something's going to happen at the snap of a finger, when in reality, like, no, not all of life is like that, you know? And I think that's a huge thing also for the younger generations, where again, there's so many conveniences that some countries have, especially in the US. There's a lot of things that we find help us convenience wise, right? There are a lot of things that help us get things done in a short amount of time, where in other places it doesn't. So we're so detached from that idea that things will take time to develop. And I know I struggled with that because I was always wanting an answer. I was always like, we're going to fight through this when it's not always the best, right? So for us, yeah, it was in my experience with my husband, that's been, so it's nice hearing that. And I go, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm doing. That's what we're doing. So it's very reassuring. And hopefully it's reassuring for everyone listening in. And just as much as I'm being captivated by all these answers, we do have a few more things that we want to talk about. Um, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, we did talk about rejection, intentions, and the friend zone in the last few weeks leading up to today's episode. So we kind of want to take a step back and actually answer a couple of those questions that were not answered in our previous episode. The segment is called Ask Away, and it's Ask Away Live Edition. So let me see if I can pull up the Here we go. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so as you can see, it's called Ask Away Live, the marriage edition. So for Gail, Edwill, and Rod, whoever wants to answer, again, we're just leaving it open. And then, of course, for everyone viewing and tuning in, feel free to let us know in the live chat and in the comments below. So Ask Away Live about marriage. So here's one of the questions that was left behind. So what if someone is persistent in his courtship and I feel unsafe or uncomfortable? How should I firmly reject him without being rude or inconsiderate? And what if he is persistent after that? And this is coming from someone in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So this is there's a few factors in here. um, so obviously this person is trying to lay it down, put them down like gently, right? So how should this person go about gracefully telling someone no?
Mm, tough.
Oh boy.
I feel like I'm that guy. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, how are you rejected, or how has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, I've been. Oh yes, I've definitely been rejected. But the thing is, I kind of know when the game is over. I don't persist after that. I mean, if the the one time the young lady said, Ed, well, I just really would just like to be friends, and that's really as far as I would like to go. And to me, that was it. That was a closed door. I didn't persist after that.
I was going to say, yes, just tell the guy that, he, exactly that. Just like,
But just don't slam the door in the guy's face. I've got that's happened to me a couple times.
so, but yes, I mean, just I would say, I treasure our friendship. I would like to keep it the way it is. And, if I was already seeing someone, then I would say, I'm already seeing someone else, so, but if he was persistent, I don't know. I think I'd be a little scared. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm also hearing from this is like, well, what about the person who is being rejected? Like what is like an important thing to realize if the door is closed?
How did you feel?
Well, it's gonna hurt. Well, it did hurt. It did hurt when that door was closed. Um, you just have to keep going. I'm not pursuing the individual. Of course, that door is closed, so you just have to continue with life, which I did. I mean, you just have to realize that these things happen. You just live with the pain until the pain goes away. Yeah, it's a part of life that one has to deal with.
Yeah, and with what you guys are saying, like Gail was saying, if you're just continue to be honest. Honesty is the best policy, and if you're honest all the time and try to do good all the time, everything else would be all good. So I think if you're just consistent and yourself being persistent and saying no, then it'll be all good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that, Rod, is that, even if someone is persistent, don't try to, you know, make them feel better and then, mislead them. That's the thing you don't want to do. You have to be clear, about, no, we are friends, and that's as far as it's going. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And I think if he's even persistent after that, then your intent, the intensity of your words has to also ramp up, and you have to say, you know what, I'm going to have to ask you to please stop. I mean, those are hard words, but I think those words have to be said, because if you're being nice and they still are persistent, at some point, you're going to have to be a little bit more meaner.
Well, a little bit more assertive.
Assertive. Okay. Yeah. Assertive. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, like, one of the biggest things is respect, right? Respecting someone's answer, and just taking it for what it is. Because I know, I mean, I've been on that side too. And I have also been in this situation where this person was saying the person persisted after. And yeah, you have to be very clear, because I know sometimes you want to be friendly and we don't want to hurt their feelings, but you don't want to subject yourself to, obviously behavior that could have been stopped if you were really clear about what you meant.
Yeah.
So I agree with all of it. But yes, don't be mean though, okay? And I know Ed will take it back, but please don't be mean. Be very clear.
Okay.
Be very clear. Because I would just call my brothers something like that.
There's no one mean bone in Ed Will's. He's too nice.
No, brother. No, bro. You don't see me when the Cowboys lose, so that's okay.
Okay.
I can see that.
Okay, let's see. Let's go on to the next question. I feel like we're ready for the next one. So this next question, oh sorry, went a little too fast. Okay, this one is, how do you approach someone you're dating whose actions do not match their intentions? And this is from someone in South America.
I'll just tell him, keep it real. Let's be real here. What are we doing?
Yeah, I think that's very forward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's also, again, communication. Let this person know, hey, you're telling me this, but you're doing that, and that doesn't quite jive. What is it? What is your, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Because if it's not matching, that has to be brought up before the relationship goes any further or goes any more deeper. It has, if you're reading two signals, I mean, that's not good,
Yeah, I'm trusting you in this, but you're showing me this.
Yes, exactly.
You don't want that trust to go away, because if it does,
yeah, then
all bad.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it can lead down to more confusion, more conflict. your peace is ruined essentially if you're not, you're not able to, like, someone, you're expecting something specific, and then it's like, what happened? Like, you ordered a cheeseburger but you got a pizza, so it's just it's like,
What
I think,
letdown.
yeah, it could be, I know it sounds very simplified, but right, that's what we're trying to understand from what we're seeing and what we're hearing.
Hmm.
But
So
sometimes that's what it takes, though, just to be, as simple as that, and
mhm.
and be understanding towards one another, and understand that it's just that simple.
Yeah, I think ooh, actually that brought up a question, in kind of in correlation to this. Um, there's a lot of, when we're trying to make sense of something, sometimes it can be said like 100 different ways, right? And sometimes I think, especially nowadays, like with everyone having access to information from their phones, right? You can just hop on your laptop or tablet and look up information. And some people are getting, uh, they're searching, right? They're searching and searching and searching for the words that can describe their situation. Like, I think that's kind of what's been happening with the recent generation too, is that sometimes there's just so many words for one thing that you just get lost. You get lost in these pile of words, right? And then you no longer really understand what is actually happening. So, like, I really like the point of, like, sometimes it is far more simpler than we're making it out to be. Um, so that's really good. That's actually really good advice, to really try to simplify it as much as possible, because it probably isn't that complicated. And, sometimes our hearts make it complicated. So we may have to take it up from our thoughts, and actually use our minds to actually make it reasonable and actually logical. Because yeah, your emotions, you can get carried away so far, and then and then you're just like, for what? For what? I wasted all that energy. I do want to move on to the last question, and is, what advice? Now this is for, like, the people who are actually married. What advice can you give for newlyweds who may have trouble with communication? Kind of was sprinkled throughout our discussion, but for newlyweds, right? For people who are just, it's been, they got married last month.
Oh,
If they're having some trouble communicating.
what I would recommend is like, well, this is based on experience, obviously. Is if someone is trying to if one of them is trying to make a point, the other should let that other person finish before interjecting. That's one of the major obstacles that I had to overcome. So I'm, whenever we had issues before, she would give her opinions, and before it's even done, I'm already stopping her to giving her mine. So it tells you two things. I really am not listening, right? Because I've already got the answer, and I just want to let her know. But that's my advice: is if one is talking, let them complete their thoughts, and then the other person can chime in.
Right? Yeah, we have a real big thing with communication is, we have two ears and one mouth. So it's the ears outweigh the one mouth. So listen first.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I would say also, even if you don't see eye to eye in the beginning, um, don't let that discourage you in your marriage. I mean, it's normal. And as long as you both love each other and you're willing to get through whatever, whatever disagreements that you have, then, it'll all come together. As long as you both are willing to, put in the effort to make it work. So, all the communication and, all the give and take, it all has to come together. And you are bound to have fights. You are bound to have disagreements, and that's normal. And especially when you're a newlywed, and just like Edwell said, he was so used to, living on his own. He wasn't used to having me lingering around. So, and it takes time. But again, if you, truly love each other, then you'll work through it. It'll get through it, together. So.
Yeah, and I think also part of that is remembering your wedding vows also, in good times and bad times and all that. And also learning each other's love language, how, what is my wife's love language? How can I better communicate? Improving ourselves, to make the communication stronger. I think that also helps a lot. Because I'm my love language is physical touch. Chriselle's is words of affirmation. I think that's what it was. So yeah, learn each other's love language.
No, that's great. That's great, Rod. Yeah, Gail is more audio, and I'm more visual, and I think that's in the beginning. Once I realized that, it helped a lot because with Gail, if you say "I love you," right? She hears that. It has much more meaning than if I were to, if I were to just hold her on the shoulder and pat her and say, "It'll be okay," I care for you. She like what Rod said, the love language. She's an audio person, but me, I like to see it. Whether it's
like a note.
A note, yeah, something that I can see. It weighs more heavily. It means a lot more to me.
Yeah.
Than like if she were to say "I love you" verbally.
Right. Yeah. Trying new things like if you're having if the newlyweds are having trouble with communication, try different things. Yeah, like what you're saying, notes, like leaving little sticky notes like "Hello, beautiful" on her, beauty vanity mirror thing, and
Oh, sweet.
they're like hiding a little note inside of her favorite book she likes to read every day. It'll surprise her. It may not be the next day she'll open it, but then whenever she does, she'll be like, oh, she'll be surprised. Texting, sometimes, texting is also can help out with communication. Like if the communication is really hard verbally. So I think, in the middle of the day, text her, "How are you? I'm having my pizza. What are you having? Cheeseburger?"
Cheeseburger.
And I think one advice that I would also like to give for newlyweds is realize, because sometimes you're like, well, why can't she see things my way? I don't get it. I'm trying to explain as clear as I can. I think we have to realize that we are two different people. And I think once we realize that, it's going to lay the groundwork for everything. Because, first of all, I'm a male, she's a female. That's one difference already. Major difference already, because males handle things and communicate differently than women do. Males tend to keep things to themselves, whereas women tend to. And I don't mean to generalize, and forgive me if I, again, if you're the other way around, but that's the tendency, at least for us. Yeah, I tend to keep it in. She tends to want to express it, and so. Realize you're two different people, and you come from two different backgrounds. You've been raised differently, and so that's why things aren't always eye to eye. And if you realize that, if you both realize that, then I think that helps the foundation for building a great communication, which takes time. 29 years already. And we're still arguing.
Pizza or
Oh, man. Not doing the dishes.
Yeah, there you go.
Out the
There you go. 29 years and we're still at it. So
yeah.
I'm trying to make it work. I mean, not at it, but yeah. Still trying to make.
Yeah, part of that, because like Chriselle, we were talking one time, and we're settling an argument, a disagreement. It's like she's saying, "Well, you're full pedal to the metal. I'm still at 10 miles per hour. We got to meet halfway, So you got to, like what you're saying, Ed, well, you got to, realize that we are different people and meet halfway, and it'll definitely help out a lot, especially for newlyweds. Your marriage will be like, it'll be happy.
Yeah. Don't be discouraged if you do hit a bump in the road,
Because that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
All it is just a bump in the road. Yep.
Mhm.
Nothing major.
What about the potholes?
Yeah. Oh, that's another story.
Those are nightmares.
Another segment.
That's another podcast.
There you go.
I think as a newlywed too, like mean, I'm again about to hit 2 years, but a lot of your advice is very sound advice, right? I think one of the things that actually my husband's actually a very positive person, and he helps me look at things more positively. And he goes, we're married, two heads are better than one, right? There's two people contributing to a solution. Now that we're married, like that's the way too that we look at any challenges that we have. And I was like, I never thought of it that way. Like when we went into it, it was like, no, it's either my way or his way. No, it was, and I was grateful that he said that, because I go, oh yeah, huh? It is, we are a team. We're a team. Things are going to happen as long as we're both striving towards a solution. So that was just hearing everything that you're saying is reassuring. And I hope it's reassuring to, anyone who is looking at being serious, looking at marriage. If you are married, just got married, congratulations. And there's a lot ahead of both of you, including, I'm saying that for myself as well. But thank you so much to, to Rod. And then well wishes to Chriselle. I know she's not feeling well, but as we know, couples should be singing the same song, singing the same song. Yeah. So hopefully Chriselle is happy with the song that Rod was singing today about their marriage. And of course, Edwill and Gail, thank you so much for joining us. We have unfortunately reached the end of our episode today, but as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chatline, Conversations That Matter. If you are interested, of course, please subscribe to INCRadio. Download our streaming app on Android and iOS. And then, of course, if you have any suggestions on any topics, just leave them down below in the comments. You can also email us at chatline@incradio.net. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We hope everyone has a wonderful next week, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye. And cut.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I bring my last.